Okay, good morning. This is a video tutorial to help AP Human Geography students with the FRQ for Unit 2, Population and Migration. So if you took the Unit 2 FRQ in AP Classroom, this should look pretty familiar. I just copied and pasted the table, the stimuli, and the questions. And then what I did is I went through several students' responses that were really solid, and I copied and pasted their responses. So for you that did a really nice job on this, you may see familiar answers because I pulled answers from different students' responses for each section of the question. So let's get into it. So what you're looking at here, first thing you got to do when you're looking at an FRQ, if you got a stimulus, you got to look at what the table is showing you or what the stimulus is showing you. All right, so this is a table that shows demographic information for two countries, China and India. It shows their total population. It shows their birth rate. That means for every 1,000 people in China, 12 babies are being born. In India, it's 20. The death rate, so for every 1,000 people in China, 7 are dying, 6 in India. So that should tell you right there that India is going to have a slightly larger natural increase rate, because remember the natural increase rate is CBR minus CDR. So because the gap is bigger in births and deaths in India, you're going to have a higher natural increase rate, and that's validated right here in this column, second from the right. And then the total fertility rate, which is the average amount of children a woman has in her lifetime, in her birth years, essentially. To use a term like that, that would be like age 15 to around 45. So now, it always gives you a caption. This is like the prompt right here. It says, in 2018, China had the world's largest population, and India has the second largest population. So you might be able to use that. It might be something you could use, or it's going to come back to in these questions. So question 1, all right, look at the verb. No pun intended, identify the verb. It's identify. So what does that mean? You're looking to just briefly define or explain something in a sentence or two. You're just pointing it out. Two types of data. So you got to point out two types of data. It doesn't require any further explanation. You don't have to describe it. You just, boom, it's there and you're done. Okay, so this is a sample student response. Two types of data that you could use here would be birth rates, also CBR, death rates, CDR. Boom, done. You don't have to say anything else. You don't have to say anything about what they are, the differences between the two countries, identify. You're just answering the question in a sentence or two. Part B, now you have to describe, you have to paint a picture of what total fertility represents. So what this is asking you, again, you guys got to know what the question is asking you. It's asking you, what does total fertility mean? And what does it look like? So this is a great response from a student. One typo, but that's not a big deal. We're going to change it right now. She said, total fertility rate represents, or he said, I can't remember if it was a he or a she. Total fertility rate represents the average amount of children born per woman in their childbearing years. It's also the number of children born per woman of a certain group in a country. In the table above, China and India both have a positive total fertility rate. So right there, this answers the question. This is telling or defining what total fertility rate is, and then he paints a picture of how total fertility rate can be used and how it relates to the stimulus. So this is terrific. This is exactly what a description answer would look like. Not only does he define what total fertility rate is, total fertility rate, it's 1.8 in China, 2.3 in India. It means he makes a connection here to developing countries and stages of the DTM model. Perfect. You could have also went and talked about how it relates to the roles of women, to female empowerment, to urbanized versus unurbanized countries. Anything like that would really lock in that description point, okay? Only saying this isn't going to get you the point, because that's a definition. You have to describe it. Okay, you got to put it in context with what the stimulus is providing you. So nicely done to that student. C, using India's rate of natural increase. So right there, This is telling you, hey, we got to look at India here to answer this question in the stimulus. Describe, there's the verb, describe how to calculate doubling time. So, this probably doesn't require as much description as part B. You have to not only provide the calculation for doubling time, take 70, which the student does right here, and divide by 1.4. You have to use India's natural increase rate. So right there, they use India's natural increase rate, 1.4, and then they provide the answer. Okay? So some of you only provided the equation, and I didn't think that was enough. We're looking for not only the equation, but you want to show us how to use the equation by providing us an answer. 70 divided by 1.4 would be 50 years. Now, some of you divided by 14 or another percentage, and you got like 35 or 28, something like that. So that would be incorrect. You got to show us the correct math here too. So that's C. So 3 down, 2 to go. All right, we're going to run into the next page here. It says using the data. All right, so now we got to use the table. We got to use the stimulus. Describe. There's another verb. That's big on this one. Describe the ability of China's population to replace itself over time. Okay, so it's asking, given the information in the table, given China's fertility rate, given China's natural increase rate, can their population stay the same? Can they sustain the same level of population growth? And the answer here would be no. And you can't just say no. You can't just say, some of you said, China will be unable to sustain itself or unable to continue its population growth. You have to describe. Tell us why. Paint a picture as to why. So right here, the student says, the ability of China's population to replace itself is that the total fertility rate needs to replace itself with an increase or decrease caused by other factors. According to the graph, China's fertility rate is 1.8. So right there, the student is using information from the graph. Perfect. Therefore, fewer children are being born than necessary to replace parents. Excellent. Because you need 2 people to have a child, at least. Because you have to assume that not all of those people are going to go on and have kids. Some of them won't get married, or some will get married and not have children. So that's where the student locks it up right here. This fertility rate would need to be at least 2 to be at replacement level. This indicates China's population may decrease over time. So there, the student is making a connection to the table. The student is answering the question, no, it's below replacement level, and why. The last 2 sentences say why. So that locks in the description point. Last part, E, explain how China's population statistics. So again, table, CBR, CDR, increase rate, fertility rate are unusual for a country with an economy that's still in the process of industrializing. So you have to break down that question and ask yourself, well, what does that mean? All right, well, China is still agrarian for the most part, meaning mainly farming, mainly rural. Sure, they have big cities that are growing in size, and they are increasing manufacturing and production of consumer services. But they're not there yet. So this would indicate that just based on that, China should be in like stage 2 or stage 3. But if you look at their population statistics, they're not in stage 2 or stage 3. Go back to the stimulus here. China would be in stage 4. Look at that small gap that's between births and deaths. Look at their natural increase rate, barely over 0. That's below replacement level. So you're thinking to yourself, all right, well, China should be in stage 2 or 3 because of their economy, but they're in stage 4 based on their demographics. And here, you have to put it together and explain. Break down the verb. Explain, all right? So you're going to need 4 to 5 sentences here. Or you're going to have to do a really good job of explaining it in 3. All right, so this student said the population statistics of China would seem to indicate that it's in stage 4. Excellent. You can gather that just from the information in the table. And even in the moving into the process of stage 5. Yep, it's getting there. And that it's typically characteristic of a highly developed country. We talked about this. Remember, guys, we talked about the DTM model. We talked about examples of countries that would be found in each stage of the DTM. You have less developed countries in stage 2 and stage 3, like your African, Latin American countries, some of your Asian countries, and then European, North American, Japan, China in stage 4 and 5. But China is a little different. It stands out from those other countries. Europe, European continent, Japan, United States, because it's still developing and still industrializing. And then this student makes a connection to why China's in stage 4. Strict anti-natalist policies of the Chinese government. So now the student could have went on here with another sentence or two, making a connection or explaining the role of anti-natalist policies. They could have done that. But I felt like this was enough. They mentioned the stage that China's in. They mentioned that China is still developing. Could have made a reference to being mainly rural, a lot of farmers still in the country, indicative of a stage 2 country, stage 3, and then pointed out why they're actually in stage 4. Anti-natalist, could have elaborated a little further. But I felt enough to lock in that point, that explanation point. Okay? So I hope this helps, guys. Again, remember your verbs. Be able to break down the question like I did. Use the stimulus provided like I did. And know where to put your time and effort. Your time and effort should go into mainly your last two. That's where you really have to apply your knowledge of the unit and make a connection between the stimulus and what the question's asking. A and B and C are more just knowledge that you can apply from the unit. All right, hope it helped. Have a good day.